All right, guys. Today we are going to be covering computer cleanup. This is one of the really most basic things that you really should understand about a computer is how to take a look at a computer, see if it's infected, take a look at some options for cleaning up the computer, and understanding how malware works in general. So I'm going to go into, in the next couple of tutorials, a more in-depth breakdown of what malware is and how it works. But, you know, the thing is people spend a lot of money every year on fixing their computers, and it's something that can be done really easily at home. And you get a couple of free tools that are available for you on the internet as long as you're using it in a home environment. So everything that I'm going to show you guys that can be used to clean up and tune up your computer is available for free. The only caveat is you can't use this in a professional or business-like environment. So just to get started here real quick, we have this computer here that looks fine. It looks like a normal Windows 10 machine. You know, you got your start menu here. I've dedicated some resources to it. So let's take a look to see what those are. So we're running with a 4-core processor, and we have 4 gigabytes of RAM that's dedicated towards the machine. And as it goes through its startup process, more and more of this RAM is going to be used up. Now, the thing is, first you have to identify what is a Windows machine, what it looks like natively and what it doesn't. This search web bar that's at the top, this is not something that your computer is supposed to have. Anytime you guys see any deviations from when you first purchased the computer is usually an indication that your computer might have malware. There's a couple of other things that we're looking for, and those things are things like pop-ups, and you can even look at your system tray. And you'll notice that there's a couple of things running in the background that just, you know, it doesn't make sense. It's advanced PC care. Then we have ByteFence, anti-malware, relevant knowledge, web discover. All of these things are things that don't normally come with Windows. And, you know, sometimes what happens is we install free programs off of the internet, and those free programs are free for a reason. They usually come loaded with bloatware, a plethora of bloat software. And some of this software is malicious, some of it isn't. And what I mean by malicious is it's not going to steal your data, but it's going to slow down your computer, it's going to cause a lot of pop-ups and redirections and all that stuff. So there's a couple of really easy ways to get this cleaned up. Now, when I'm assessing a computer, the first thing that I'll do is I'll take a look to see what programs are installed and see how easy it is to remove them. So what you want to do is you just want to open up your search bar and then type add or remove programs. Now, the thing about uninstallers is that Windows requires that whenever you write a program for it, that you give it an uninstaller to give the person a chance to remove the program from the computer. But that's not always the case. It doesn't always work out that way. And so if you'll notice here, there's a bunch of different programs that are associated with Windows, and there's a couple of programs that aren't. So we've got ByteFence, anti-malware, and this is the really fun one. They'll start putting it as anti-malware when it's, you know, some of these kinds of programs really aren't. And so we have this hotspot shield, and we've got a couple of other things on here, right? So what we want to do is, instead of going one by one and identifying the files, the first place I like to start is with a program called Malwarebytes. Now, Malwarebytes is made by a company called Malwarebytes Inc., and you can just go to malwarebytes.com. And this is an anti-malware, anti-spyware program. It is available in a freemium, in a free version and in a paid premium. They also call them freemiums because sometimes there's a caveat. Like, for example, in this free version that we have, what we're able to do is we're able to uninstall malware that's on the computer, but we're not going to get any kind of preventative coverage. So you get a trial for like 15 days or something like that, and then after the 15 days are up, then you're required to purchase it if you want to keep that premium purchase. Personally, I find that Windows Defender is decent for keeping most of the infections off of my computer, but if I do notice that my computer is running weird or something just doesn't feel right, then what I will do is I will run a program like Malwarebytes to check for it. Now, while this is downloading and going through the setup process, another program that's important is a program called Revo. Now, Revo is an uninstaller, and this one is really good because unlike traditional uninstallers that are provided with programs, Revo actually finds any kind of leftover files that are on the system, So while Malwarebytes installs in the background, I'm going to also download Revo. And this is a really lightweight program. It's one of my favorites for uninstalling because it will not only get all the main programs removed for you, but it'll get a lot of the leftover files as well. So you can buy the Pro version. I actually did buy the Pro version because it's a portable that I was able to get and it's unlimited usage. But just the free download is enough. Now, this Revo, this doesn't look legitimate actually. So one of the things that I don't like about this right here, and you got to be careful where you get it from, this Dashlane. And I know Dashlane is a legitimate program, but I don't remember ever seeing it. Now, they could have changed the website and they could have added it on there. So I'm going to re-search for Revo. And make sure that I'm going to the right page. Yeah, it looks like that's the legitimate program. So we're going to go ahead and just do the free download. And I always hate these and this is another place where a lot of people get really messed up. So what they'll do is they'll click on a start download here or start download here, and they don't know what the right one is. One thing that I learned a long time ago is whenever you're looking for download, and I don't know if this applies in this situation, but if you're looking to download something and you can move it around, then it's a picture link. Let me get rid of that. Sorry about that. So if I click on this download link, you'll notice that when I click on it, I can't actually move it around, right? However, if you take a look at the stuff that's on the side, when I click and drag, you see this picture that's moving around? That means that this is a picture, an image, and a link, and it's designed to pop up. So one thing you can do is, for example, you can go and in this one, you might not be able to do it. However, in like Google Chrome, you can take a look and inspect the code on it, and you'll notice that this has a target link to it. Whereas this, the picture itself can't move. So that's another really important thing to remember is when you are downloading this stuff, make sure that you try that out if you're unsure what your actual download link is. Now, the next one after Revo is a program called CCleaner. Some people pronounce this CC Cleaner, but if you look at it a little bit more closely, it's just CCleaner. And CCleaner is made by a company called Piriform, if I'm not mistaken. And yep, Piriform. And this is a really good way of getting rid of some of your temporary files. And again, all of these programs are free as long as you don't use them in a commercial environment. So this is what I do to maintain and keep my computer up to date. And this is something that I definitely recommend for you guys as well. So Malwarebytes is almost done here. And once this is done, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the database is up to date. And once we get the database updated, we're going to run a quick scan on our computer. Now, depending on how many files you have on your computer, this scan can be quick or it can take a really long time. Now, with this virtual machine, I really don't have much on here. So the scan should work pretty quickly. So it's going to check for updates real quick, and then it's going to do the pre-scan and all that stuff. It finds a lot of stuff during the initial scan right here, but it finds most of the information during the heuristics analysis. So this is probably the most powerful tool that I know of for getting rid of some of the malware. Now, if you have an antivirus program like WebRoot or Trend Micro or AVG or whatever that case is, Malwarebytes can be installed along with it because in its free version, you have to remember Malwarebytes is designed to remove malware, not to prevent it. So it's not a preventative antivirus. If you went with the premium version, then you won't need the two different programs. And I find that it's sufficient. However, other companies might do it better. The thing that I've noticed is, and in my experience, WebRoot is the only company that really typically finds the potentially unwanted programs as Malwarebytes classifies them. They're called PUPs or potentially unwanted applications, PUAs. And so what happens is you have companies like Trend Micro or AVG, and what they're going to do is they're going to look for Trojan viruses. They're going to look for rootkits and all these different types of all these different types of threats that are on the market. And what they're not looking for are the companies that at one point used to be legitimate, but now no longer are, or companies that might have a license, but analyze your, like, they might use your system in a way that's malicious. At the same time, Malwarebytes can be a little overprotective of your computer. Some of the programs that have been caught by Malwarebytes that necessarily aren't malicious are the Amazon one button click. And I know Lenovo computers have a lot of programs that Malwarebytes does like to classify as malware. What you'll notice is that another thing, if you guys are paying attention right now, the toolbar off the top went away. And the reason is that was a web discover toolbar, and you're finding out now that Malwarebytes is getting a bunch of this stuff. So let's go over this scan once it's done. It's going to take a little bit of time to do its job. And in the meantime, I'm going to install some of those programs that I downloaded for you guys. So the first one is going to be CCleaner. And I guess Revo didn't install properly, so let's go ahead and get that again. And then, so this is the real-time protection of Malwarebytes. You won't get this if you don't do the paid version of it. So just keep that in mind, that this is only if you do the premium version. So it's, if you notice this relevant knowledge, that was one that was running in the background here. This relevant knowledge, that is malware. It's a potentially unwanted program, and it's automatically redirecting. So that's the reason why it did that. So, and we're not going to reboot right now because I want to go over that scan with you guys. So let me just let this download here. And this doesn't look legitimate either. And this is, you know, it's one of those problems. So let's save this, and we'll take a look to see if it's legitimate or not. Otherwise, Malwarebytes will catch it for us. All right. So that's done there, and let's take a look at our scan. Oops. Revo's there. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go over this information that's in here really quickly. You might ask me to do that a couple times. All right, I'm going to let this run because it's doing it's still doing some more scanning here. I don't want to restart just yet. So in the meantime, I'm going to get CCleaner set up and installed. I kind of wish I gave this thing more RAM now, but again, the more system RAM you guys have when you guys are working on these things for yourselves, the better your system will run. Typically, I don't recommend running anything less than 4 gigabytes on Windows 10, but even then you can run into some issues. So I might have to actually end up restarting this virtual machine right now. So let's go ahead and just do that. All right, so now that we're back into our system here, just gotta let it load real quick. Well, what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna reopen Malwarebytes and go over the programs that it found, the log files, and go into a little bit of detail. This web discover, that's another malicious browser. All right, so let's take a look at our report, and there should be a quarantine list right here. There we go, perfect. All right, so in our quarantine list, we're gonna have a couple of things here. PUPs stand for potentially unwanted programs. So there's a couple of things that we found. We found WebBar, that was the top bar that was on here, and that's made by a company called the Web Discover browser. Then we have Relevant Knowledge. If I'm not mistaken, they are a survey company. So all of these system files that are in your Windows platform are going to be quarantined here. And then what we want to do is we want to do another scan just to take a look to make sure that we've gotten those files removed. And sometimes what will happen is whatever's in the quarantine list, it'll still show as being there. So once this is fully done, we'll delete everything from our quarantine list, and we'll move on. So while this is finishing its scan, let's go ahead and get CCleaner and Revo installed. What I like about Revo is they have this thing called a hunter mode, and I'll show you guys exactly what hunter mode is. Sometimes Malwarebytes won't fully remove a program. You'll notice that it still can be opened and it still can be run, and so Revo is really great for that. So let's get CCleaner installed first, and then once this is done, we'll install Revo. Now, when I go through and I am tuning up my computer, or I'm doing a cleanup on my computer, the first thing I do is I do Malwarebytes. Anything that's left over from Malwarebytes that I didn't finish, I get rid of it with Revo. And then once I'm done with Revo, at the very end, after I do updates and optimizations and all that stuff, then finally I'll run CCleaner. I usually use CCleaner last because then I know that my computer is up to date. So you'll see here that there's a bunch of information available, and so we're gonna let Malwarebytes do its job first, and once Malwarebytes is done, then we're gonna run Revo to see if there's anything that's left behind. All right, so we're still finding more threats here. This is adware. Now, adware is a different type of malware. It's not a program that's doing anything malicious directly, but what it is doing is it's gathering information on you guys, and it could be sharing this information with another company without your consent. So we're going to quarantine selected threats, and again, depending on the speed of your computer, this quarantining process can take a while. So I'm just going to let this run real quick. After this is done, we'll erase the threats. And once the threats are completely gone from the system, what we're going to want to do is a full reboot. After we reboot the system, there shouldn't be any programs left on the computer. So you can do another Malwarebytes scan just to make sure that any leftover files are caught. But if you notice that some of the programs are still showing up, that's where Revo works out. And while this is quarantining, let me quickly go over some of the things about Revo. So Revo is a really strong uninstaller, as I was explaining, and it gets leftover files. But what I really like about it is this thing called the hunter mode. So let's say you have your hunter mode and you want to, there's a program that's running, but you really don't know where its location is. And Malwarebytes is doing its job, and you'll see some of those things that are uninstalling. So PC Accelerator Pro, it's not going to start on its own anymore, and you're seeing more and more programs slowly going from this list as it's quarantining these threats. Now, there's still something on here that I'm not too happy about, this hotspot shield. I'm not happy about this one, and so I can remove that with Revo. Also, if you guys notice, it says, hey, PC Advanced PC care is gone, but it's still showing up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into hunter mode, and I'm going to specifically go after this program. All right. Well, I guess I need to restart my computer. Oh, there we go. So then with Revo, now that I'm in hunter mode, I'm going to click on this program, and it's going to find the information for this program to try to remove it. Let's see. And see, when I was dragging that thing over, it's saying, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to uninstall? Do I want to stop the auto starting, kill the process, kill and delete the process? There's a lot of different things available for this. So I'm not going to do this yet because I want to see if Malwarebytes will get this on its own. So let's go ahead and restart the computer again. And once this is done restarting, we're again going to run a really quick Malwarebytes scan. It won't take as long this time since we've got most of the threats already done. But it's always good to let the Malwarebytes program do what it needs to do first. Okay, so now we're back into the computer for a second time. And what we're going to do is we're going to run Malwarebytes again. And in the taskbar here, I don't see the other programs running. So they should be gone from the system, but we'll double check with Revo uninstaller and get rid of any programs that we don't like. Oh, it looks like I found a little bit more. Oh, and there's that PC Accelerator Pro. All right, and while this is working, I'm going to get rid of this hotspot shield and show you guys how the program works. What it's going to do is it's going to run through the built-in uninstaller first. So this is having it go through what the program provides. So I'm just going to uninstall this. And the reason that I'm uninstalling this is because it's not a program that I've ever seen come with Windows. Most likely it came through with one of the other programs. It is possible that Microsoft is now starting to roll these out, but again, in my experience, I have not seen this actually come with Windows. And this is a VPN technology, which again, I'm sure there's a lot of really good VPN programs out there. However, this is not one that I'm familiar with. So for my personal safety, and I'm not using a VPN on this machine, it's probably better to uninstall something that you didn't install yourself. Now, if it's a clean boot of your computer, if it's the first time you're using it and you see the program on there, it's probably meant to be there. However, this can change based off of the manufacturer. So in my experience, I've noticed that companies like HP, Dell, and Asus lately have been putting a lot of bloatware on their computers that are on the lower end products. However, the higher end products usually don't have all that stuff. So now what I'm going to do is scan for leftover files. So I'm just going to do a moderate scan. I don't really need to be very critical about it. I'm going to do a quick moderate scan, and it's going to tell me if it found any leftover files or not. And in this situation, it didn't find any leftover files. All right. I also want to get rid of WinZip. Personally, I am a 7-zip fan, so I know WinZip only is free for a certain time. So let's get rid of this one as well. And once this is done uninstalling, we're just going to, again, run a scan for leftover files. And sometimes in the registries of your computer, it will leave some information. All right, so this one found registry information. So what I'm going to do is just hit select all and delete because I no longer need any leftover files for this program. And some of these files, it'll tell you that you need to restart the computer for it to work properly. So now with Malwarebytes, we're going to quarantine these three. We're going to start the removal process, and the computer is going to restart one more time. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to check the system for any kind of system corruptions. So Windows 10 and Windows 8 have these two types of utilities built in. Windows 7 has one of the utilities, it doesn't have the second. And the utility that I'm talking about is the system file checker and a program called DISM. DISM, what it does is it gathers the information from the Windows database to get the information necessary to check against the operating system's files. And so what it'll do is make sure that there's no corruptions in your system, and if there is, it'll allow System File Checker to repair those. So what you want to do is right click at the start menu, and this is down here. So you want to right click at the start menu and hit PowerShell as an admin. And this is a string that you're going to write in here. It's dism /online /cleanup image /restore health. All right, this will take quite some time because you are downloading the image files for Windows to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this thing run real quick, and then once it's done, we'll run the system file checker. Okay, so now that dism has finished doing its job, what we're going to do now is we're going to use a command in PowerShell and command prompt called system file checker. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the system file checker to scan the files of the Windows system to ensure that there's no corruptions in the operating system itself. What malware can do from time to time is it can really mess up the way that your system works. And the system file checker is going to check for corruptions and repair those automatically. If it can't repair the system, you might want to consider a fresh reboot. And this is why it's important to back up your data. But we'll go ahead and do that first. So it's SFC, which is system file checker /scan now. And this is just, it's another long process. It depends on how many system files that you have. And again, since I'm running a VM with very little information, this might work properly, much quicker than it would on your own system. And it also depends on whether or not you're running a solid state drive or a standard hard drive. So I've had SFC take anywhere between 20 minutes to finish on a computer with very little information, up to 2 hours to finish on a computer that was very old and had a lot of information. And so there was obviously hardware differences there. But we're going to let this run and we'll come back once it's finished. Okay, so system file checker has finished, and it's reported back that it didn't find any integrity violations, which is good, and that means that our system isn't corrupted. If it didn't work, if there were corruptions, what it'll tell you is one of a couple things. It'll tell you that it did find integrity violations, but was able to repair them, or it will tell you that it found integrity violations and was not able to repair them. Now, to make sure that system file checker can do its job, you always have to run dism first, because dism gets the information from the online images that allows system file checker to work properly. So if you notice that you're doing system file checker without doing the dism first, you might get often the message that says we were not able to fix the corruptions, and to do that you have to make sure you run dism first. Okay, the last couple of things that you want to do once you're finished here, obviously you want to go into your settings, go into your system, and make sure, not system, you want to go under updates and security. You want to make sure that your firewall is turned on properly. So Windows Defender, you want to open the Windows Defender, and right now the way that I was able to install the malware was to turn Windows Firewall off, and so you want to make sure that this stuff isn't on as much as possible. Also make sure that once you're done, you install the updates. I'm not going to do that right now because it's not necessary for me to finish this part, since it's just an instructional. But you want to do all of your system updates and make sure that everything is done. I know updates are really annoying, especially with Windows, because they do them at the worst times. And here's another thing: if you're in a situation where you can't, for example, it'll say the only options it'll give you is it'll say shut down and install updates or restart and install updates. If those are the only two options you're being given, there is something you can do in PowerShell. Please don't put off your updates, because as vulnerabilities are found, the operating systems will put out patches to fix these. But if you're in a rush and you definitely can't wait for the time it takes to install an update, you can type in the command shutdown -s-t00, hit enter, and it'll shut down your system without installing updates. Again, I don't recommend this. Try to avoid that as much as possible. So now that we've finished getting all the information into the system that we need to, the corruptions and all that, what we're going to do is we're going to run CCleaner to do a final cleanup of the system and get rid of any temporary files. So you can analyze and it's going to go through the different things that it can do for you guys. If you do have a third-party web browser such as Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome, I have noticed that it will not delete the temporary internet files from that, so you will have to go in and manually remove those. But what this is going to do is it's going to delete any logs of like the things that you type in run, any search history, all that stuff. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to run the cleaner, and it's going to save us about 218 megabytes. So this is always the last step that I do, which is to run a temporary file cleaner and get my system optimized of the junk that can load up on it. The last thing I want to cover before we're done here is sometimes you might not even be able to get here because malware can occasionally cause problems to the point where you can't access anything on your computer. And in that situation, there are solutions. So what you can do is if you can get into your login screen, all right? Oops. It's my family there. If you can get into the login screen, and let's say you have a password or whatever the case is, what you can do is hold shift on your computer, push the power button, and hit restart. If you don't have access to even this part, as your computer is starting up and trying to load Windows, you just hold the power button until it powers off, turn it back on again, and usually what you'll get is you'll get a message saying that advanced repair is starting, or it's scanning your system files. That's going to take you to this menu, and with this menu you can do a lot of troubleshooting here. Okay, so a couple of things that you can do is you can, if you decide, you know what, I just want to reinstall Windows, you can reset your PC from here. You can go into your advanced options and you can do system restore, you can create a system recovery image, do repair on your startup, or what's really important is the startup, and you can restart and go into safe mode. This is how you enter safe mode on Windows 10 and Windows 8. There isn't a safe mode button like there used to be. So if you enter safe mode from here, then you will be able to run Malwarebytes through the safe mode, and that should get you guys back up and running. There is one last thing I forgot to cover, so I'm going to load back into my operating system, and that is what's called a system restore point. System restore points are essentially a backup of your computer in a time when everything is working well. So if you're having troubles and you can't fix your computer, but you don't want to reset your computer back to original factory settings, you can use a system restore point to take it back in time to a time when everything was working properly. Now, what this will do is it will reset any any software changes that you might have made or any configuration changes, but it won't erase your files. And the way that you get there is there's two ways to get there. The first thing is you could just type in create a restore point, and that's going to take you into the system properties. The other way you could do it is through control panel. You go to control panel, you go to system, you go to, I believe it's system here and system protection. Yep. So that'll take you to the same area. And what you're going to do is right now, system restore is not on my system, so I can configure it. So you turn on system protection, and typically what I do is I put it at 4%, depending on how much you want to save. And this will apply everything. And you can also, if you have any bad restore points, you can delete them. Hit apply, and then you can create, and you can call this restore point whatever you want. So for example, let's say I call this restore point 4.16.18. Then it'll create the restore point for me. All right. So to summarize what we've done today, your computer is running really slow. It has a bunch of pop-ups and things that you don't understand. The first thing that you want to do is you want to do Malwarebytes to scan your computer of all malware and clean up the computer. The second thing you want to do is go with Revo to uninstall any leftover files. And remember, before you uninstall something, please research it. I don't want you guys to accidentally delete a file or a program that's essential for your computer to function. And lastly, after you've done your system stuff, like turning on your firewall, checking your system protection, your system integrity, and doing the restore point, you want to run CCleaner All three of these programs are free as long as you use them in a home environment. These are not authorized for business. Please support them. Revo, it's only $40 if you're going to do it for a business. I really do like these programs, and I like the fact that they make them free for us as home users, but the only way they can do that is if they charge businesses. So if you have a small company, support the companies that are making it free for us to use for home. I definitely recommend that. All right. Other than that, that's it for today's tutorial. If you guys have any questions, again, people in the Cyber Lab will be more than happy to help you guys out, or you can leave a comment on my video and I will get back to you guys as soon as I can. All right, see you guys in the next tutorial.